What is going on, YouTube? This is Lawrence, and we're back over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and today we're talking about Spider-Man 4, believe it or not. This movie is probably a couple of years away, but I can't stop thinking about the possible villains that will be showing up in this movie, and we're going to go through them right here, right now. But before we get started, guys, like every video, I'm going to ask you guys, if you're not a current subscriber of the channel, do me a favor, go ahead, click the subscribe button for me. You will not regret it. I told you guys, every 1,000 subscribers from here on out, I'm going to be giving something in away, and it starts at 4,000. So do me a favor, smack that like button, smack that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell. With that said, if you haven't checked out my website, mightycollects.com, I always post new books for sale. With that said, let's get started in talking about Spider-Man 4 and the possible villains that we are going to see. Welcome back to another video. This really popped when I saw it. That to me is a monster increase. Again, this book got hot. This book is ready to go higher. So let's jump right into it. We are back today with another statue review from Diamond Select Toys. Without further ado, let's get into the review. All right, so when we talk about this movie, let's eliminate the villains that we've already seen before. So the Green Goblin, Electro, Doc Ock, Sandman, the Lizard, and the Shocker, who we saw in the first Spider-Man film, Spider-Man Homecoming. We're also going to eliminate the Vulture and Mysterio because they have been used before. I know the Vulture is still out there, and who knows what Mysterio's future holds. Is he dead? Is he not? We don't know, but either way, I don't see them using these villains for the fourth installment of this franchise. All right, so that brings me to my number one villain who I think is going to be in Spider-Man 4, and that is the Kingpin, all right? We know he's already debuted in the Hawkeye series. We know he's going to be in the Echo series, and down the line, he will be in the 2024 Daredevil series. But where can they go from here? I think the Kingpin is a great villain to kind of bring in for the MCU for Spider-Man because he does relate to Daredevil. We already know Matt Murdock and Peter Parker kind of know each other, even though now nobody knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But Kingpin can be pulling everything behind the scenes, and that's why I think he's such a great character. He fits right into this ground storyline that we're expecting to get for the fourth Spider-Man film. And that doesn't mean he's going to be the primary villain, because I do think, like in the retro animated TV series from the early 90s, I do think he'll be having some of his goons, some of the other Spider-Man villains, going after Spider-Man. With that said, that brings me to my second villain, which is the Scorpion. Now, we did get a little bit of a hint at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming that Matt Gargan is looking for Spider-Man. And I still think he is, even though he doesn't know who Peter Parker is, and he doesn't know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. I do think the Scorpion is bound to show up in a future Spider-Man movie, and this one may be it. I think he's a great character, but I also think he's a minor character. And if you remember, in that animated series, the Kingpin hired the Scorpion, the Shocker, and Rhino to kind of go after Spider-Man. So he's my second villain I expect to see in this movie. And I just mentioned the third villain is the Rhino. Now, they have used this character before in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they just portrayed him as an awful idiot, and I agree that Rhino is a bit of an idiot, but the way they did his character, his suit, it was just freaking awful. We need a classic Rhino. We need a classic Rhino to show up, be under the control of the Kingpin, and take on Spider-Man physically, right? Almost on the lines of a Juggernaut for the X-Men, a Juggernaut for Deadpool like we saw. He's got to be that big, in my opinion. Regardless, I do think Rhino is primed to show up in this movie alongside the Scorpion. I think those three characters that I just mentioned, you know, Kingpin with Scorpion and Rhino under him, maybe going against Spider-Man and Daredevil, will be a great storyline to kind of set up the next phase of the Spider-Man trilogy. So those are my top villains I expect to see. So after that, it kind of brings me to our next one, which is Kraven the Hunter. And this kind of plays into the whole multiverse saga, right? We know Kraven the Hunter is getting his own solo movie over at Sony, right? I don't know when exactly it's going to air. Not sure when it's actually going to come to the movie theaters. But I will say this, if they show out and do that Kraven movie, and then all of a sudden we get to Spider-Man 4, and he gets kind of transported over here from the multiverse. I'm not sure how that's going to work or not, but this could go on, and they could do a Kraven's Last Hunt, and I am dying to see that done right in the MCU. I absolutely love that storyline in the comics when I was growing up, and I think it would actually be phenomenal, especially because it is a grounded story that we expect to see now that Spider-Man and Peter Parker is on his own. Could he cross into our universe? Is Spider-Man going to cross into his? Either way, I do think it's a possibility because we're setting up kind of smaller villains right now. We're not really looking at the monster villains that we think are going to show up in this movie. We already had these Avengers level threats already in these first couple of movies. Don't think that's going to happen. We're headed towards smaller villains. So Kraven's a good bet, a decent bet, but I still like my first 3 option better for Spider-Man 4. All right, so that brings me to a theory that everyone is talking about right now. My next villain, of course, is the Hobgoblin, right? They already used the Green Goblin. I don't think they're going to bring Norman Osborn back anytime soon. I think they probably put that baby to bed, at least for a really long time. But that brings me, like I said, to the Hobgoblin and Ned. You all know what happens. Ned doesn't remember who Spider-Man is anymore. He said in the last movie he promises he won't go against Spider-Man. He won't turn on his friend Peter Parker. Peter doesn't know Peter Parker anymore. And I think this would be an awesome kind of turn for him to forget what he said, turn into the Hobgoblin, and go after Spider-Man. Who knows, right? It makes a lot of sense. We kind of saw that little bit of tidbits from Jacob Batalon showing us here or there. He could possibly turn into the Hobgoblin. To me, I just don't see it happening in Spider-Man 4. Maybe down the line in 5 or 6. Maybe he turns into the Hobgoblin at the end of the Spider-Man trilogy. He kind of gets Ned to remember who he is, and he stops himself from going after Spider-Man when he realizes it's Peter. All right, so that probably brings us to the most anticipated villain on my list. And that, of course, is Venom and Eddie Brock. Now, we did see a little piece of the symbiote stay in the MCU after, of course, Venom went back to his universe. And I do think they're going to set this up in Secret Wars going forward. So I don't think we're actually going to see Venom in Spider-Man 4. But hey, we may get a little tidbit of him going into seeing that symbiote, working its way towards Peter Parker at some point, and then at Secret Wars, attaching to Peter, him getting the suit. That doesn't translate to Venom showing up in Spider-Man 4. It probably translate to him showing up in either 5 or 6. So that's what I expect to happen, but you never know. Maybe it does happen in Spider-Man 4 and they don't go the origin route of Secret Wars. It's still possible, but highly unlikely in my opinion. All right, so the last villain on my list, of course, is the Chameleon, and we already got a little bit of a tidbit of a character introduced to us as Dimitri, who's the bus driver in Far From Home. We were all thinking that he was supposed to turn into the Chameleon at the end of that movie. It didn't happen. But again, this character could also show up in this movie and kind of be under control or work alongside with the Kingpin in some aspect to take on Spider-Man. And this kind of sets up maybe like the smaller characters all at one shot, kind of going after Spidey to see if he can handle it now that he's on his own. And maybe we bring in like a Daredevil, maybe we bring in like a Punisher to go on along and help Spider-Man take on all these characters. That seems to me where I think the best storyline is, where he kind of gets help from other street level heroes and they take it from there, leading up into Avengers Kang Dynasty and then into Avengers Secret Wars, and where we get that black costume. This makes sense to me, and I do think this is the line that Marvel Studios should kind of go with for the next Spider-Man film. You guys let me know what you think down in the comments. And I miss a villain that you think might show up in this next Spider-Man 4 movie. I'm all ears, guys. I love Spidey. I cannot wait till Spider-Man 4. I am super hyped up for this. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying, do me a favor, go ahead, tap that like button. Like I've done with all of my videos lately, if we reach 200 likes on this video, I'm giving something away to you guys. So make sure you hit that like button. I will talk to you guys soon.